talk about a topic that I don't see many people talking about, and it's been very important for me currently. So, I would just like to reflect upon some things involving maladaptive daydreaming. Uh, and Yeah, I have some insights, some reflections about it. I am not a mental health professional of any kind, okay? I'm going to be sharing my opinions and my research is based on what I know so far about it, and especially based on my own experience, especially at the end, where I'm going to talk about talk a little bit about my experience with this. I don't see many people talking about maladaptive daydreaming, and I think it's important that it's more talked about because I believe many people might experience this, at least more people than we think. And I don't know, I myself would think that this is just how I am, this is just how my brain operates. Everybody must be like this. I don't know, but it is not. So, um, so I think it's important that we talk about it. Sometimes I would feel also very alone in this. So I was realizing that this was being an actual problem for me, but I would feel like I cannot really talk to anybody about this because they would just minimize the problem or say things like, "Oh, but you're just very imaginative, and this is not a real problem," but it is. So, okay, I have some notes here that I've made, so I'm going to be looking at them eventually. So I'd like to start by saying, what is maladaptive daydreaming? And it's basically when daydreaming becomes something that takes just too much of your time, takes too much of your attention. It isn't just daydreaming for fun, it is your default mode, I'd say. So it starts taking a huge mental load of you. It starts interfering with your responsibilities, with your life, perhaps your dynamics, your relationships, your mental health. And it's not a mental health diagnosis, okay? I'd say um, it's more of a pattern that some people present, some people not, but a dysfunctional pattern, or a condition, but it's not a formal mental health diagnosis of any kind, okay? Some signs of maladaptive daydreaming are the person will have extremely vivid scenarios going on in their mind with like whole conversations and many details going on, which tend to be very repetitive, but the person won't they just won't get tired of them. So they could spend hours in their mind with their scenario going on. They will feel most likely an attachment to the situations they experience, the people they imagine that they tend to imagine. It's just it feels too much on the person because it starts taking up space and time for things that belong to their real life many times. They can make repetitive movements while they while they have those. I laughed because I just realized I am gesticulating right now, but they could be doing it if they're having a conversation in their mind, for example, so they are gesticulating, or if they're imagining someone is there with them, they could, do things that they would do with the person. They should present a loss in other activities that they're involved with, such as their job, their study routine, and things like that. And they could also feel disconnected from their reality from time to time. because many times they don't feel fulfilled in their real life. So that might be part of the reasons why they escape to the scenarios of their mind. So they could also feel detached from their real life or disconnected somehow. Now let's jump into why this pattern tends to install in one's mind. So it's a coping mechanism for some type of discomfort in one's life. And it's as if your mind your mind just feels safer and more comforting than your real life for some reason they might feel in their real life. If feelings of loneliness, they might have experienced trauma, neglect, abandonment issues, unmet emotional needs, um, even boredom. Okay, and about mental health conditions. Maladaptive daydreaming might be not necessarily okay. It's not everybody who have these conditions that have maladaptive daydreaming, but it might be tied to people who have ADHD tendencies, emotional dysregulation, OCD, anxiety. Now, I'd like to talk about how to deal with maladaptive daydreaming, which is something I've been practicing. I still struggle with this, but there are things that have been helping me. But I'm going to mention things in general, not just what's been helping me personally. Okay, so I think that understanding yourself is very important for this. Before I talk about practical things you can do, I think that the understanding part is very important. The self knowledge is very important here, because if you deal with the symptoms, if you deal with what's going on the surface level, you might get rid of the problem for some amount of time, but there will still be problems going on in the inside of yours. So it's very important to understand yourself. So for you to begin with, I think you should, if you're willing to work on this, you should ask yourself some questions like, what am I needing? What am I needing emotionally right now? And for you to get to this answer, you can ask yourself other questions like, what do what do I experience when I have these thoughts of mine? Is it love? Is it taking care of someone? Uh, is it something fun? Is it attention that I would be getting? What is it? And then you go and give yourself that. I know it's hard, but uh, what did I start? When did I start doing this, and why? What was going on in my life? And what parts of me still feel in the same way I was feeling back then? Because if the behavior hasn't stopped, then you might still feel the same way at one point, if you think about it. uh, and also, a more practical question for you to ask yourself: what triggers me? Because there are some things that might trigger you to do that. So, let's say when I get home, I have nothing to do and I feel very bored, then I tend to jump into those. One thing I found out that I've never saw many people talking about it ever since I found out about melodic daydreaming is how music can trigger us. And I speak for myself. I feel very triggered by music. So that might be something you might look into. Not saying like you should stop doing certain things or stop listening to music, but you might want to rethink some habits of yours. And now let's jump into more practical forms of coping with this. I think the main one is mindfulness and grounding activities. So I love this this mindfulness universe. It helped me a lot. And mindfulness, very in a very summarized way, is basically bringing yourself back into the present moment without judgment for the fact that you were away, that you were distant in your thoughts. It's not something like, oh, I was, uh, like, God damn it, I was thinking about it again. I, I don't know. I'm a failure. I cannot do it. I will never recover from my maladaptive daydreaming. I can only live in my head. You will not say that to yourself. You will say something like, and that's personal, but you will say something like, huh, I was thinking about it again. Oh, it's okay. I'm here now. I'm going back now. It's okay. It's okay. I'm here now. Here now. So you should treat yourself with compassion. Same way you would treat someone you love, because you should love yourself. So, so yeah, I think this compassion is very important. This trying not to judge yourself, because it's you should only be proud of yourself because you're trying. That's a big step already. So you can provide yourself affirmations for you to speak to yourself when you realize you're in this moment. Something I've learned in my cognitive behavioral therapy was to make affirmation cards, so you can grab cards like blank cards or post-its or whatever, and you can write things you want to remember throughout the day or throughout some moments you might go through, like this maladaptive daydreams. You are going to write on the paper affirmations for yourself that you think that might help you cope with this in a healthier way. You can even use the reasons why you've been struggling. So, for example, if you're feeling unloved, you imagine yourself like being having loving moments. You can write affirmations, write loving affirmations toward yourself, which is great. You can also, for example, stomp your feet to the ground, barefoot, feeling the ground. You can feel your heartbeat. You can practice breathing exercises like the diaphragmatic breathing. There are some breathing uh, techniques, like I don't remember the one I used to practice, to be honest, but there are some techniques. You can just look it up. There will be many ones, and you can totally find one you might adapt better to. So, for example, there is this 478 technique, breathing technique, in which you will inspire for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7 seconds, and then release for 8 seconds, and then you're going to repeat. You can make it this sort of a ritual for yourself. So, for example, I'll do it 5 times when I realize I'm having those. Or you can be more chill about it. You don't have to be rigid about it. This is something to help you. Uh, Something I also found very interesting when I was trying things for myself and when I was looking things up was that humming things, like humming songs, might help a lot. And I was shocked because I wasn't quite believing this, but it in fact brings, like, really brought me back to reality. And there is some scientific explanation behind that, which I don't remember. I might put it here if I find it. But yeah, very interesting. There is also that exercise of you're going to stop by for a second and you're going to list to yourself five things you can see, and then you should name those things, okay? Not just see. You name those things, and four things I can touch, three things I can hear, two things I can smell, and one thing I can taste. I usually cannot remember the order, that's why I wrote them here. But it's okay if you like swap one for another, it's okay. The focus here isn't in getting things done perfectly, it's just on bringing yourself back into the present moment, bringing yourself back into the room you're in, okay? You can also channel this creativity of yours into creative projects. So you can draw, you can write about what you're feeling, you can make these things into something more tangible for yourself. I think it's also important that you set yourself a routine and bring movement into your life as far as possible. I'm not saying you should like get full of activities and overbook your whole day. No, but sometimes, especially when we're depressed, we might not um, we might feel out of purpose a lot, and then your thoughts are going to feel more interesting to you rather than your life. So make yourself an interesting life if you feel like you don't have one right now. You can make it for yourself in the ways you can. So you can implement hobbies into your routine. You can find new hobbies for you. You can try things out. You can get to know yourself through this. And implementing a routine is very important for you. Even cognitively speaking, it's important for you, not only through the not only through the aspects that aren't tangible, but it's scientifically proven. It's like it affects your brain. I don't know how to talk about it properly. I didn't study this that way, but because I'm not a doctor or anything. But you can you can do that, and I think that's going to help you. I don't know why I'm so right. And the last but not least, you should try your best to have compassion on yourself, I believe. You know, it's okay if you have this pattern going on. It's probably because something happened to you, a discomfort happened to you, or a discomfort is currently happening with you, and you found your way to deal with this, and this might have worked for some time. And you should only be proud of yourself if you're deciding to, deciding that it's not working anymore, and that you should step away from it. You should be patient with yourself as well. And now I'm going to share my own story with this. I I started to question myself because recently because I was I was finding myself stuck in loops in my mind many times, and then I started questioning myself about those because as much as it feels good having those, it can sometimes be very heavy to live stuck in loops in your mind with things not happening in the real life the way you wanted them to. So I was thinking about it a lot, and then I remembered something about my past. When I was a kid, like I don't remember my age, but around 7, I'd say, I I would be punished a lot, and then I would be sent to my room a lot. So I would spend most of my time inside my room. and then I would feel very lonely in my room. And to do with that, I remember I had a sort of an imaginary friend. So he was a boy and he lived in my room with me. So sometimes I would eat food, for example, and I would have to bring one for me and one for him. And if I had to grab water, I would grab water for me and water for him. And then it was just nice because I had, someone who I could talk to. I would have someone who I feel like that loved me, and he was providing something for me as well. That was he was choosing to stay there with me and live my most boring moments in life, such as he would like watch me study and make me company while I was studying, and make me company while I was tidying up my room. And it felt just very nice having someone choosing to be with me, because they wanted to. And then I realized that I've never stopped doing this so far. I've been stepping away from it. It's hard, but I've never really stopped doing it after that. Not like no longer with an imaginary friend, but with real people I knew. So whenever I started liking a boy, I would just not stop thinking about him. Sometimes I would be fine liking the same boy for like 3 years with nothing happening because things were happening in my head, and it's usually daily simple thing like I'm talking to him while I'm washing the dishes, things like that. It's just hard because it consumes me a lot of time, basically. And it is also tiring, it is also exhausting sometimes, feeling myself stuck in these loops all along, over and over, no end. But I'm just glad that I, identified the pattern. I'm glad I found a name to deal with this, because when we find a name or a diagnosis, which this is not a diagnosis, but when we find something like that, we can research more about it and therefore understand ourselves better. So I'm just very glad that I got to do it. I've been practicing those things I mentioned, not all of them, but a lot of them. I've been realizing like what my patterns are. I've been trying to shift focus to myself. And yeah, it's been going great. Um, and yeah, I I don't know if I'm going to post this last part because it felt very personal sharing it. But I might. I don't know. It might help someone if anybody watching it. I'm just very glad and happy uh, that I'm working on myself and finding ways out of this not so healthy dynamics that I found myself in. Okay, so I hope this video has been helpful at least for one person, and thank you very much if anybody watches this, and bye.